Hello, my name is Carolina and I am here at beautiful Purple Valley Yoga Center together with Laruga, and we are today working on breaking down the postures in the third series, and we have come to the third posture, Kasyapasana.
Yeah, Kasyapasana. So this will be the first posture that starts the leg behind the head series. So in the third series, we have quite a few leg behind the head poses. So this is one reason why in primary series, Supta Karmasana is so important. In intermediate series, Ekapada Shirshasana, Dvipada Shirshasana, Yogi Nidrasana are very important. So it is, it's quite obvious that those postures are going to be very integral to how we enter into these postures in the future. And with all the variety of leg behind the head poses that we do in third series, there's an opportunity to really open up through the hip on another level. So we'll go ahead and get started. We'll start in downward facing. When we do the vinyasa, we want to hook the right leg around the arm to prepare to bring it behind the head. So we'll go ahead and begin. So here I have the leg wrapped around my right arm to seamlessly, hopefully, get the leg behind the head. So it's really important that we get the shoulder in front and that the shin bone can lay behind the neck so my head can rest over the shin bone. I'm going to come and bring my hands in front of the heart. Exhale, or inhale, I should say inhale. And then exhale, I'm going to lay back right here. Now one good tip here is that it is important that the foot of the right leg can come in contact with the floor. So sometimes I will bend the opposite leg, the left leg, a bit to really bring the foot in contact with the floor. And once I do that, extending the leg further. The head back and breathing here for 5 rounds of breath. We'll say that's 2, 3, 4, 5. To come up, I'm going to lift my left leg and inhale, come up, exhale, hold, and then inhale, hands down, lifting up all the way. Exhale, jumping back. Inhale, upward facing. Exhale, downward facing. Inhale, jump. Preparing for the left side. So it's important to really get the leg back. Sometimes we have to do a few extra movements to get the shin bone behind the neck, to bring the foot of the left leg to the right shoulder. Exhale, I'm going to lay back. And really bring the left foot in contact with the floor, using my head to continue to open through the hip and then extending the right leg. Keeping it active. We'll say that's 2 breaths. 3. 4. 5. Inhale, coming up. Exhale. Inhale, hands down, lifting up. Exhale, jump back. Inhale, upward facing. Exhale, downward facing. So Kasyapasana is the first pose of the leg behind the head sequence of postures in Advanced A. Usually, because it's the first leg behind the head pose, we might feel the most resistance in the hip with this pose. As we continue on, you'll start to feel that the hip joint and the muscles around the hip start to loosen up and gain a bit more flexibility. One reason why it's good to utilize the action of the chest and the head to feel a bit of an opening. It feels nice that we get to recline for this first leg behind the head pose. So don't be alarmed if you feel a little bit of resistance there, but it is important to keep both legs very active to facilitate the opening. Because we're laying down on the leg, we can really, over a 5 breath count, start to feel a loosening in the hip joint.
So some teachers are teaching these postures. When the student is in the posture lying down, basically they're pushing the foot against the wall. What do you think about that? Just to create more of stability, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing that you can do to feel a sense that you're elongating through the body further. But again, when you really are doing this pose, we're not pushing against anything.
No.
You know, it's really a matter of finding that elongation from the hip out through the toes, activating that leg, and also using the chest, using the activation of the head to continue that opening through the hip.
Yeah.
So it can be one exercise to feel something, but actually we're just out on our mats doing it, and it's not really kind of what we're after. Actually, that extended leg is supposed to be pointed. Yeah.
So what is the most important part? Would it be to take down your head, so the head is touching the floor, or to be able to take out the elongated leg, so the leg is straight on the floor? Because for me, it's impossible to do both.
Yeah. I mean, even for me on a very tight day, I mean, I wasn't even super warm, like doing it now. You know, I'm not necessarily perfectly flat. It's always about just finding a balance between both sides, you know, like if we prioritize just the leg being grounded, then there's this sense of the chest coming up. Like some teachers will like hold that bottom leg. Or if I'm, you know, too much back this way, then maybe the leg is hanging high up. But the tip that I didn't mention, it is good to get the foot of the foot of the leg that's behind the head, to get some access to the floor, get that really nice opening in the hip. And then from there, and I find it kind of relaxes the pose a little bit. Then from there, I really extend a lot of energy through the extended leg. So I kind of get that opening through the hip, and then I find the balance later by extending the leg. And that's kind of helped me to get a little bit more open.
Yeah. Some teachers are actually putting this posture into the second series as well, before the Ekapada sequence. What is your opinion about that?
No, I don't know. I don't agree with that. I personally don't agree with it. The thing that's so important about Ekapada and where it is in the intermediate series is that we are actually establishing really good core strength, you know, and so we need to have that core strength as we put the leg behind the head. And just because something seems easier doesn't mean that that's what we need to be working on at that moment in time. And so I find that many of these postures are in the perfect place on where they need to be. And that's sometimes the criticism of some people think that Yogi Nidrasana should be further before Dvipada because it's a little bit easier. But, you know, it's sometimes we have to have these challenges in place to get stronger in certain areas to support what we do later. And again, I tend to be of the school that it's not always about the individual poses, it's how we string them together. And how we work through different obstacles. And some postures to complete may take us a few months, even a few years. If it's a lifelong practice, who's counting? You know, like there's some good lessons in there to just work patiently and methodically. Some people aren't always satisfied with that, but I find that slow and steady and building integrated strength is so important for the longevity and the health of our bodies, and also for the non-physical aspects of yoga to penetrate more deeply inside of us.
Yes, that's true. So I'm also thinking about the transition, because the transition out of the posture would be the same kind of transition that we are using in the second series, or the intermediate series. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because people are doing them in slightly different ways. Sometimes they're leaning forward, going a little bit out to the side. But basically, when you were transitioning from the posture, you went up into Chakrasana? Chakrasana, yes. And then you swing yourself back. So can you talk a little bit about the transition out of the posture?
Yeah,
basically?
so the transition out of the posture is the same for every single leg behind the head pose that we do in Advanced A, and even in Ekapadashirshasana in Intermediate Series. So essentially, we are lifting the bottom off the floor as we keep the extended leg active. We swing the leg up, touching, or coming close. It's not necessarily that everyone has to touch, but we come close to touching, and then swinging that leg back and landing into Chaturanga Dandasana. So when I do this particular transition, I try to catch a little bit of the momentum or energy that's generated through the leg releasing from behind my head. There's a little bit of this forward momentum that's generated, and then from there I kind of catch that energy and then follow through with the movement. If you don't catch it, it kind of like you start to lag behind a little bit and have to muscle your way through. The other thing that I found really important is that, you know, as the leg goes up and then the leg behind the head is releasing, I lift my chest and lift my chin so I don't sink too low into the arms. That also tends to help me to be able to follow through with the movement in a more seamless fashion. So sometimes people get into this energy of letting the leg kind of really come down on the head, and then the head is sinking down. And whenever the head is sinking down or you're looking down, the energy tends to collapse down toward the floor. So I do the opposite. I actually lift the head and then let the momentum of the leg coming out from behind my head to help create this energy to follow through with the movement.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it might not make sense because it's a little bit hard to explain, but this is where, you know, you can really work a little bit smarter instead of harder and kind of get some energy from a release of, like, because it's a little bit of tension here, and then the release of that tension creates some nice energy.
But your foot is coming down it's coming very far down. So basically it's not really behind the head, it's almost on your shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's where it's important that we really set up the leg behind the head as best we can, as securely as we can. But that does take some time as we deepen our opening in the hip joint. But if you can get the shin bone to lay more parallel to the shoulders, it feels quite secure. And then that's why sometimes I don't like to say leg behind the head. I like to say leg behind the neck.
Yes.
Because when the leg is behind the neck, then my head really rests on the leg. Where if it's behind the head, it feels like it's pressing down, you know, on the head. It doesn't feel always so comfortable.
And I feel that a lot of students are in this position where they're basically in a quite unhealthy position, because the head is coming down and the leg is not really put in the correct place.
Yeah.
So do you usually do any form of hip openers, or you're not working with that kind of preparation?
No, I actually don't do a lot of hip openers.
Because many teachers would recommend you to do some, you know, hip openers or the leg behind the head postures.
I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I mean, everyone has a little bit of a different body and has different obstacles and different resistance that they feel in their body. But I also really feel like, again, working with high quality in the prior positions is so important. Going for depth instead of collecting as many asanas as possible, which kind of supports you to nurture a space to go into other areas in the future. One thing with leg behind the head too is that I'm always stressing to many students is to, you know, really keep the ankle straight, keep the foot active. I tend to really point the toe, And what this does is it elongates my leg.
Yeah.
When people are really loose in the foot and the ankle, they tend to they're trying to get the leg behind the head, but it's just like they're fighting this loose ankle as they try to bring, and then it cuts the energy off here and it shortens the leg this way. So I really keep the ankle super strong by activating my foot, and then I have so much more leverage to get it behind, and then I have more length, but because I'm not loose here. I'm not breaking the energy off at the ankle. The other thing is that when you're setting things up to go behind the head, really getting that external rotation by bringing the shin bone parallel to the shoulders here. I mean, this is a good place to work too.
Yeah.
The other thing is really prioritizing the shoulder coming in front. And then again, I'm keeping this line really straight and strong, keeping the foot very active so it doesn't break at the ankle. And then even once I get it behind the head, continuing to get the shoulder forward. And I'm actually pushing this foot back and down. So there's a lot of space. So it's not just collapsing on me here, really getting the foot back and then pushing it down. Back and down, still working the shoulder in front, like so. And again, getting the shin bone parallel as possible, getting this foot to come in contact with the shoulder. Because again, if my foot is laying over the shoulder, I really have a nice external rotation through here. Sometimes people don't prioritize that external rotation. Maybe it's back here, and then they're already trying to get, and then it kind of looks something like this. So we have to get that external rotation going too. And I think it's so important to really be nice and be patient. Don't, get the shoulder in front. Of course, I mean, when I first was putting my head, it wasn't like this necessarily, but it does take time. And these types of techniques I started to figure out really helped me to get more leverage, to get the leg back, to open up through the hip.
Yeah.
I find that to be really important because a lot of people break the energy line at the ankle, right? And so, and it's also very strengthening too, to kind of maintain this. So there's lots of little tricks. And we also, with leg behind the head, we also have to be really patient because there's so many muscles around the hip joint.
Yes.
It takes a while for them to release. So we have to just kind of keep working, work at a high quality, and think, more long-term than short-term.
Yeah, definitely patience. That's important. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.